All right. Hello, hello, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful time. This is our last broadcast of the semester, so I'm sure that many of us are happy about that. I hit the live button before I close my door. Hold on a second. Okay, let's go ahead and get you this broadcast link so you all can follow along if you are not subscribed to the channel. You know what? I've learned by now the best thing to do is not to refresh the page, but to just go right to youtube.com while I am here on my channel. There we are. While I am here. Okay, mute that, and here's our unique link. Let's put this puppy out there. Okay, excellent. So now that down there's the little sound that it says you got the email. So here is what we're doing today. We're just going to kind of have a little decompression assignment to do Friday. And well, let's just go ahead and just kind of talk about the semester and then by extension the assignment. One thing I do need to do though is make sure you can see what I see. So let's go ahead and pull this up. Okay. All right. So closing out the session for y'all in section 800. So in your syllabus, the big syllabus inside your workbook towards the front, we have these learning objectives, and hopefully, and by hopefully I mean I'm fairly confident that you have. I mean I haven't graded absolutely all of your work from the discussion board, and I mean from this week on the discussion board. No, and I'm just starting to chew through your final persuasive speeches, but or whatever you chose to do, your final speeches. Um, but I'm pretty confident we hit all of these, or that you've hit all of these rather. So you've mastered the demonstrate basic communication principles. We tackled that in that first week with the SMCR model and talked about noise, and you had some great ideas and arguments about noise and how it might affect schooling with that little activity about when do schools have uh, classes scheduled around lunch. That was our attempt at meeting that, and I feel like many of you made that as well as the just throughout the semester. Many of your speeches follow those principles. You try to reduce as much noise as possible, and you try to make encoding and decoding messages as simple as possible. And I really appreciated that. So there you go. Let's check that off the list here. Select and limit speech topics for the audience. I mean, you can't help but do that. Your speech topics were interesting. They are appropriate for a college audience, controversial or not. And a lot of people feel like we shouldn't talk about controversial things. Many of you did anyway, and those of you who didn't necessarily talk about something quote unquote controversial, you still talked about timely topics or topics of general interest that people in a college environment or adults in a college environment would enjoy or would find enlightening. So you've checked that objective. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Arrange ideas in an organized fashion. Again, one of the great things about this group is that you all adhere to those outline structures, and those outline structures are really what um, helps you arrange your ideas. All right, so you all, I feel like you can check that off. Anybody who disagrees can just kind of watch your speeches and see that you follow not just the outline format, but pretty much any logical organizational pattern that there is. You didn't wing it. As far as I know, anyway. I mean, you could have had a couple recordings where you tried to wing it, and then you simply sent me the one that seemed the most coherent. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you learned how to make it coherent. So there you go. Select and use supporting materials. You did that again several times throughout the semester, starting with the informative speech and right on through to this one. One of the things that I'm pleased about as a group is that you all use a logical selection of supporting materials. You did kind of generally follow my advice, especially on the persuasive speech a couple weeks back, or almost a month ago now, actually, that you chose, to mix stories together with broader statistics. Um, and that was, that's a great persuasive tool. So you get a check mark there as a group. Construct proper visual aids. This is one of the things I wish we kind of talked more about, but in the end, there's not a whole lot to talk about visual aids. They really are an art form as opposed to a science. And while we could just look at example after example of what's good and bad, at the end of the day, we had that one class, not class session, what do I want to say, broadcast, and you all turned in work that did your genuine best effort to follow those principles, and they were good. So, like I said, it's one of those things. It's an art more than a science, but and there is more to talk about, I suppose you could say, but it's not really anything that. Let's put it this way: there's a whole class on visual rhetoric, so there's more to talk about, but in terms of constructing proper visual aids, you've mastered that, and there's not much more to learn about making them proper. Maybe there's more to learn about how to make them into really big, artful messages, but in terms of making them appropriate for an audience to see, you've mastered that. Delivery, both informative and persuasive presentations, and you've done that in spades. Depending on what you've chosen to do, you've done two of each of these. You've done at least one of each, but you've done at least two of one of them. So we can check that off, I feel. Choose accurate and vivid words. Again, many of you did an excellent job here. Your I wanted to say delivery, but that's not quite it. Your vocabulary was chosen well, and as a group, you all had some pretty expressive things to say, and you expressed them pretty well in an organized fashion. So good there. Improve confidence. Now, this is something as a curmudgeon, I would probably say I can't really say you mastered or didn't master even, because confidence comes from, it's an emotional feeling. It comes from within. Um, it is my hope, though, that you look at how you've achieved all these other objectives, which you can basically objectively see, or at least in a cultural way, you can say, at least in Western American culture, you've checked off these boxes. You've got good supporting materials. You've got good visual aid, and as you check off those boxes, you realize that you know what, you are a decent to excellent public speaker, and hopefully you take that emotional feeling that you've got this competence and confidence in yourself. So I hope that you can say that you could check that off. I guess I can't check that off for you, but I am hopeful that many of you have said that feel this way, and a couple of you have expressed that way in a couple of your emails towards the end of the semester. So I'm pleased with that. You can analyze your audience. We've done that. We did that nice little survey activity, and again, I haven't seen absolutely everybody's speech that included this survey, but the few that I have seen so far, that I've graded so far, are referencing it, are doing it appropriately. I noticed your surveys were good. The kind of stuff that you expect in a class. Um, I guess certain individual questions may have missed the mark a little bit, but that's because, we're new to this, and um, it's not like the information wasn't useful anyway. So I'm glad that we had that experience, and I'm glad, hopefully, that you're glad you did, and you've been able to do it from what I can see so far. So excellent there. Display increased ability and critical listening. We've tried to hit this throughout the semester, particularly with the two video assignments, the one where you reviewed a peer, and the more recent one where you're looking at one from a video or some kind of presentation from outside of this course. Critical listening, again, isn't like, see, some people, when they say critical thinking or critical listening, they think of things like, the chips are down and stuff needs to happen. We need someone to come up with an idea that is insightful and has a lot of good, uh, has a solution to it. But that's really just that's problem solving, and I don't think we have problem-solving listening. That's more problem-solving thinking or problem-solving skills. When we say critical, we mean looking at the good part of the speech or looking at a good part of a work and looking at the things that maybe need improvement, and then kind of putting them back together, right? You're analyzing it, you're breaking it down into good and bad, or I don't want to really say bad, but good and improvement. And then you're assembling them back into a final judgment, right? That's critical, like a movie critic or a novel critic or what have you. It's coming to a judgment about something. using its strong parts and its weaker parts. Um, and of course, being ethical while doing all of this. Um, from what I can tell, you definitely did. You didn't plagiarize. From what I can tell, there is a Blackboard text matching software, and really the only times I've noticed that it would go off is when you were quoting things or saying things that you were citing, which is exactly appropriate. So. Um, from what I can tell, you were ethical while doing all of this. You didn't also do any of the more troublesome argumentation styles that um, are prone to being unethical. You didn't really use really heavy-handed tactics in your persuasion, at least not in my opinion. Now, that's somewhat subjective. If you're, this is always something that happens with puppy mill speeches, and we always have some of those, and we always have some people that, um, they want to show the pictures of the injured puppies, and I always think that's fairly appropriate because that's, those photographs aren't made up. Um, but other people would say, well, you're trying to guilt me into reacting. It's like, well, yeah, but just because it's an unpleasant emotion doesn't mean something unethical happened while you were being shown that. And I just kind of wanted to make that point one final time. Being ethical is about, telling the truth, being honest, or at least telling the truth as you know it to be. Um, you know, it's really unfortunate sometimes that people will tell the truth as they know it to be, but it turns out their information is bad, and that's kind of a separate issue. As far as I can tell, you're all ethical, and in my opinion, the things that you've exposed us to or exposed me to, they're not unethical in really any way. So those are the objectives, folks. And like I said, I feel as a group, this one you have to kind of determine for yourself. But as a group, I feel like you've made all of these, and I would challenge anyone in a face-to-face section to, look at your videos and say that you haven't, quite frankly. Um, because if you were to really, uh, the only thing that might be different is that you're sitting down at the computer screen and everybody else is kind of standing up at a podium. Um, in the grand scheme of things, that's not really different, is it? So, um, you are good public speakers, at least in my opinion. So, what's this last assignment? This last assignment is really for you to give more programmatic feedback. Of course, there's what do I want to say here? There's a course evaluation that you guys have access to. I think you should have sent. That's just from the university. This is not necessarily about the course evaluation and my teaching. This is more about, well, I guess it is about the course, but this is more about these learning objectives we just kind of covered. We continually get feedback from students about the course and what they want from it. There's one hand, there's a good reason why we require everyone to take a public speaking course in Ball State University. And one of those reasons is that we is because it's relevant to a lot of disciplines. So it's kind of us professors who have been where you've been sitting and telling you what you need to know in order to be successful. So there is that kind of, I don't know, autocratic mentality to it. But there's also the idea here that we want this course to serve you. And in terms of getting student feedback, I feel like this is one of the better courses in our university, quite frankly, about making it relevant to students. So we have questions. These questions are all kind of going in that direction. So which of the learning objectives that we just kind of went over was your favorite, or that you enjoyed doing, or that you looked forward to, or maybe you didn't look forward to it because I don't, but it's class. People don't usually look forward to look forward to work. But which one of these was maybe the thing that you kind of resonated with you? Maybe that's another word instead of favorite. What resonated with you the most, and why was that? Which of the learning objectives do you feel you made the most progress towards, and why was that? Because we want to know where you felt most productive. Similarly, in spirit in that on that vein, the opposite way, which of the learning objectives did you feel you already knew or accomplished before the class, and why? Um, this is one of the things that the course, I won't say it's a struggle, but it's one of the things that we always need to stay aware of as instructors is what experiences you come into the class with. Some years or some years, some semesters, we have a lot of students that might have taken a speech course in high school, and other times we don't have anyone that's had any kind of previous experience. So this is kind of our question to kind of figure out what's going on. out in the world. And it might not have been a speech class, which is one reason why I don't necessarily ask this question at the beginning of the semester. Because as you go along, maybe you realize that you actually covered a lot of this stuff in English. And if I had asked you in the beginning of the semester, have you had a speech course before? You would have been like, no, but it turned out many of these ideas were covered in an English class, and that wouldn't have been apparent until, most of the way through the semester. Nonetheless, we're asking it now, so if you didn't feel like you knew any of these objectives before, why was that? Maybe you never had any kind of previous speech course, or maybe any kind of course that talked about these ideas at all. Um, if you feel similarly, if you feel all or most, so this is an extreme reaction, I suppose, but if you feel like all or most of the objectives you had already covered before, again, was it a previous course? Was it some kind of previous, experience? Maybe you took it upon yourself to join, well, gosh, what's that organization? It just flew out of my brain. The Toastmasters, that's what it was. So, we want to know about that kind of stuff as well. If you had the power, which of these objectives would you like to focus on more in an online setting and why? I try to, not just my personal class that I try to adapt, we try to adapt this particular online section towards certain things based on what students would find useful. One of the reasons why we used your workbook as to the extent that I feel like we could. Um, as you go perusing the chapters that we did not read, you one find that many of them were very short, and two, um, a lot of the information is pretty dated, and we're trying to update that. And this is kind of a question that goes in that vein. What would you like this course to kind of focus on? Was is having 3 chapters devoted towards outlining really all that necessary, or would you rather us focus more on vocabulary use and artful use of language and things like that? So if you had the power, which of the objectives would you like to focus more on in this online setting? And similarly, what do you feel would need less emphasis? I know I probably maybe bias a few people by kind of giving an example just now, but maybe you don't want so much emphasis on delivery, or maybe you want more. I know that this answer is going to vary from person to person, but you'll be surprised sometimes how consensus can form. um, those are was basically 5 questions. Um, Most of them asking why at the end is just kind of a prompt there. You only need to write like 1 sentence for each one. Did I go on to the next slide here? Yes. So make your response to discussion board post in the Digesting the Semester discussion forum by Friday, 11:59 p.m. This is basically the last chance to do it. I'll be looking at them on Friday, or not Friday. No, I don't really look at assignments before they're due. I will be looking at these around Saturday. Your grades for this course, by the way, are due on my end on Monday at noon. Um, of course, it is my hope and fervent desire that you have your grades before that point, but in all honesty, it'll probably be around Sunday by the time all of your grades are uploaded, so that you can see them. And then Monday, um, we have Monday, I need to submit them. And then on Wednesday is kind of when they're locked in, and now when I say locked in, I mean they can't easily be changed with an electronic submission from my end. We would actually have to fill out and by we, I'm pretty sure it's just me, but I'm not familiar with the process because the good news is that I rarely had to change someone's grade after the semester's over. But that would require, anyway, after Wednesday in the following week, so about 7 days from today, your grade becomes locked into the point where I need to submit some kind of hard copy form to the registrar and get several people's authorization to do so. So my point here is that around Sunday, let's say Sunday evening would be a good time to check because I don't want to commit firmly to a time on Sunday. But so Sunday evening, check, make sure that you can see your grade. Make sure that I didn't do anything silly like maybe I gave you a 5 out of 50 and my feedback says, oh, you did an awesome job on this. Is probably by context, you probably understand that I meant to put in 50 out of 50. But I just got so excited. I hit 5 and hit enter, and that was it. I didn't do that because I hated you or something. In any case, make sure that the grades are correct or that they seem to gel well with your impression of my feedback. If you have any questions, of course, continue to ask. And then, like I said, on Monday around noontime, they're due for my first submission, and then we basically have until I believe it's Wednesday at 4 p.m. for me to make easy electronic corrections. After Wednesday at 4 p.m., it's going to be a little bit more difficult, and you'll have to wait a while. Um, so let's try not to flirt with that. All right, well, that's really all I have to say. This discussion forum will be added by the time you see this video, so go ahead and answer those questions. I appreciate all the feedback that you can give. Um, if you want to say, of course, if you want to say anything like you feel is really negative, when you post something on the discussion board, I do know your name. Um, don't. On one hand, I want to encourage you to say that I'm a mature professional person, but if there's anything that's like really, really, really upsetting, there's that anonymous course survey that it should be in your email box that is run by the university, has nothing to do with me, where you can kind of air your grievances. Similarly, if you want to make sure that this kind of teaching style that I have continues to evolve and I keep things that are worth keeping, make sure you also use that survey to tell me, this was a great thing that you did, um, so that I can continue to do it. Again, that one in your mailbox is anonymous, and this one is not. So, like I said, I am a professional person. If you say that all these objectives sucked, I really hated the course, that's something that I'm going to use with my peers to help make the course better. Um, but I can understand why you wouldn't necessarily want to say that with your name attached to it. In which case, definitely make sure that you maybe say things more neutral in the discussion post, and then you can really let us have it on the anonymous course survey that's administered by the university. Anywho, that's really all I have to say. I'm done out of things to say. So you guys did an excellent job this semester. I've been impressed with all of you. I wish you all the best of luck. I guess there is one more thing I want to say. We will be having a special immersive learning experience in the Communication Studies department that me and several other instructors are involved with. It's actually the thrust of the experience is that we're going to start a debate team at Muncie Central High School. Now, if you are able to take courses on campus during the school year, this is something that you could apply for. The enrollment for this immersive learning experience is open. You don't need any other prerequisites. Actually, Comm 210 is a prerequisite. Um, so, assuming you turn in your work, um, and that it's of minimal quality, of course, you would all be eligible for this experience, is what I'm trying to say. And we have a maximum of 15 students, and we only have like 6 enrolled. That's enough to have the experience, but we want to get all 15 if we possibly can. So if you are at all interested in getting more communication credit, we can offer, what do I want to say? Well, we can offer independent study credit. There's also a teaching methods course that about coaching forensics teams. Forensics in this sense means speech and debate. So that you can get credit for that class, and you can also get credit for the actual debate course, Comm 220. So there's 3 classes you could get credit for in that one immersive learning experience. And again, enrollment is open. There's not really any kind of tryout. We're not. You have the prerequisites. I've seen your work. I would feel confident that if you applied from this, again, it does require that you're able to take an on-campus course because we will be traveling to Muncie Central to mentor students there as a group. So that's what the actual job is that you would need to do as students. So as long as you're able to do that and you want to apply, basically you can. We are well short of the maximum number of students, so I would like to invite all of you to apply to that. It's not really an application. It's more or less letting me know that you want to take it, and then I can add you to the class list. So, all right, that is all truly this time. Have an excellent evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you see this.